Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Abyss. I am Rob, and we are moving into 2010. Going through this list, not necessarily the best year of movies. There's some good stuff in here, but at number one for me, one of my favorite movies of all time, and I feel like I say that a lot, but for me, it's a lot of things that we talk about. Of course, it's storyline, it's subject matter, but it's who's in the movie, that kind of stuff. So there are through history of these movies, some of my favorite movies of all time. In 2010, just happens to have one of those movies. Music side, it's gonna be a band that you guys know if you know me that I like a lot, but have yet to introduce you to on these episodes. So excited to get there. But we're gonna start off with a movie that actually let's do this. There's two I don't own that I wanted to mention. Number one, Get Him to the Greek. Um, I mistakenly mentioned the other day that it was the first of the two, but it's actually the follow up to Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And as I said the other day, I really enjoy the movie, but I don't own it. Another one I don't own that I think is really good is The Runaways, which is the story of the all female rock band. Um, and Dakota Fanning as Cherie Curry and Kristen Stewart as Joan Jett do a fantastic job, and it's really good in telling the story, and it's a good movie. But once again, I don't own it. So going to the first one I was going to show you, and actually it's not one of the ones that is actually my favorite per se or whatever, but I wanted to point it out for a couple reasons. Number one, A Team, Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, can't go wrong. But I wanted to point out Quentin Jackson, or as many know him as Rampage, who plays B.A. Baracus in this movie. I've worked with Quentin a little bit, and he's just a terrific guy and a hard worker. And I remember him telling me when he was doing this movie that Liam Neeson told him, you know what, don't act, just be yourself. And I think that that is so cool when you're a veteran actor talk to somebody who's newer to the profession of what we talk about, that it's you in the situation, and don't act, just be yourself. So it was kind of a cool tidbit that he had told me that Liam Neeson had said, and it's cool to pass on to my actors, and that's why I wanted to point out this movie. um First comedy for 2010, Due Date. A decent movie. Robert Downey Jr., Zach Galifianakis. To me, it's kind of like a poor man's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, right? They're caught together on this journey and they have to go, across country or so together to get Robert Downey to the hospital where his wife is having a baby, whereas in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it's getting to Steve Martin's house for Thanksgiving. Anyhow, it has its funny moments, but like I said, I'd rather watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Next up, Clash of the Titans. It's a remake, and I love the original. I just like the purity of that movie. Plus, that's what I grew up with. And there was something to be said about creating these things rather than CGIing them. And, with CGI, you cheat a little bit. It just is easier to do. You had to be more creative back in the day. But I thought this was a decent remake. The way they do Medusa in this is pretty cool, where she's really good looking, and then when she wants to turn you to stone, as that's when you see the face of the snakes and the whole 9 yards, whereas in the original you see like the typical Medusa, which is cool too. But I just kind of like when they do something a little bit different, but it follows the same path of the story, etc., and a pretty good movie. Next up, one that my class mentioned last night, good movie, Inception. Not my favorite, but good. And like I said, most know it. Leonardo's at his height now. He's doing everything. He also did Shutter Island in 2010, which I personally didn't like. I know Tech said today or yesterday in class that he likes that movie a lot. That one's okay too. But you know what? When you're a movie star, you're making a lot of these movies, and they're kind of different and they're unique. And Leonardo does a good job of going with those roles at this point. He's really kind of growing into himself, and makes pretty decent films. So check them both out. Kind of a comic action thriller, one that I really enjoy. Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz and Night and Day. It's a really fun movie. It has a a lot of twists and turns, but a lot of subtle humor, and they do a really nice job together. Kind of like we talked about with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds in The Proposal, or Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. There's just that fun, comedic chemistry of trying to deal with each other, and it makes for a pretty fun film. And you know what's funny? This could be another Mission Impossible if they would have done it right. You know what I mean? But they wanted to go more on the comedic side with it, and so the result you get is more of a comic thriller adventure type movie more than anything. But I think that it's really fun, and it has some great moments in it. Next up, a couple of Denzel movies. Unstoppable with Chris Pine, based on a true story. This goes into that formula we talked about with Denzel, where they're taking him as the superstar and putting him with the young person of the time, whether that be Ethan Hawke in Training Day or Ryan Reynolds in Safe House. Unstoppable with Chris Pine is the next one, and it's a good movie. You know, it's I like movies on trains. I do like those movies all the way through history. There's some really, really good ones. Horror Express, right? Murder on the Orient Express. The Lady Vanishes, which is one of the last films that Hitchcock did in Britain. You know what I mean? There's a lot of them. Silver Streak, which I love. You know, The Lady on the Train is another good one. There's a lot of good movies filmed on trains. Narrow Margin. I can go on and on and on and on and on. And this is another one kind of like that. We just talked about taking Pelham 123 yesterday. So like I said, there's a lot of cool train movies that you know are ones that you guys can put on your list and watch. And Unstoppable is one of those movies. Once again, you cannot go wrong with Denzel Washington. Which leads me into even a better film with him, The Book of Eli, right? Gary Oldman. It's just when you have two heavyweights like that going mano a mano, it makes for a really, really good film, especially in one of these type of dystopian land type films. It's just really good, and it's really strong. And Mila Kunis does a good job as the young girl in it, and you know, she's in another movie we're going to mention in a few minutes, but you know, I just really like this movie, and it's quintessential Denzel Washington, just a badass in this. And how can you not love him or love this movie? It's really good. And if you haven't seen it, you need to start watching Denzel movies. All right. Another one that was a nice surprise when I originally saw it, and that's Red. This was a Black Friday buy, right? I was going through and it was like $3.99. I look at the cast: Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich, Helen Mirren, and I'm like, where do I sign up? You know what I mean? It's like, this is a no-brainer. And it's a really good action suspense film with some really good comedy in it. They just do a great job together. And yes, there is a Red 2, which is good as well, but this one is much better. This is just a really good film. And this is one of those ones that a lot of people haven't even heard of. And if you haven't, you need to go check it out because it's really good. And if you have heard of it and haven't watched it, you need to watch it because, like I said, it's a really strong film. All right, so my runner-up for 2010 is Natalie Portman in Black Swan. And what can I tell you? I got this as a SAG viewer, and I just loved it. And I remember there's only 2 times in the history, in the 29 years I've been teaching actors at the Actors Workshop, that we've watched a full movie in the class. One was Midnight Run with Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin, and the other one was Black Swan. It's that good. She's that good in it. It's a compelling story. Barbara Hershey as her mom does a phenomenal job, and like I said, Mila Kunis as the rival girl and kind of the troublemaker girl, and her kind of, you know, her friend but not her friend, does just a really good job. But really, Natalie Portman carries this film. She is terrific. She's so strong. She's so believable. She's so honest in it, and I really like this film. And to the point, I bought it, right? Even though I had the viewer, I went and bought the film, and that's how good it is to me. And you know what? It could have easily been number one, but for 2010, number one was going to be a movie that I just love, and that is The Conspirator. You guys know me. This is my steak and potatoes of movie making. This is the period of time I love. I love the Civil War. I love the stories behind it. I'm fascinated by it. This is, of course, about the trials of the conspirators that helped plot the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. You get a little of Booth at the beginning, but it really is more around Mary Surratt, who's played by Robin Wright, who does a great job. James McAvoy plays um, Aiken, who was a colonel in the Union Army who was assigned to defend um, Mary Surratt, and Frederick Aiken himself is a unique character, right? And then you have a supporting cast of, Kevin Kline as Secretary of Defense, Edwin Stanton. You have Tom Wilkinson, who plays the senator, who works with McAvoy in this, and it's just, you get a good cast. Robert Redford directing it. You get that period of time of the Lincoln assassination, and it's just a really good film. And what's really cool is when he uses shots of historical pictures, especially at the end when they're being hung or hanged, is how you say it. You almost feel like you're seeing the still pictures, even though you're watching the video. Like, he did a really good job of doing the historical part of it, which is so important to me when I'm watching this type of film. I don't want to see, you can do a little bit loosely, but you want to stay with the facts, and it's just really, really good done, really well done. And we've been doing the scenes in the class the last couple of weeks, and I remember saying to my students, look, if you're going to mess this up, let's not do it, because I don't want movies that I love ruined. And they've done just an amazing job with it, and they're studying on the history of it, and they've done a good job with trying to recreate the moments of that period of time, which is not an easy thing as an actor to do, right? It's one thing to put the clothes on and be on the set and feel like you're in 1865, but you have to have it in here. You have to have it in here that this is, when you're living, and now you're dealing with it instinctively, and that helps with the believability. And they've done just such an amazing job. I'm so proud of all of them with it. But for me, like I said, one of my top favorite movies. I never get tired of it. It's shot beautifully. The whole thing is just great. You need to check it out. 2010, The Conspirator. All right, on the music side, I'm actually starting with one from 2008, and here's why. It's by a band called Avantasia, which is the brainchild of a guy named Tobias Sammet. And they've done a few Avantasia albums, but this one is part of the Wicked Trilogy, and it came out in 2008. It's called The Scarecrow, and it's about this basically lonely creature, who's not happy with his present environment. And it causes him to go out and find a journey of peace and all of this kind of stuff. And then he deals with the temptations and different things of the heart and soul. And the reason I'm pointing it out is because in 2010, on the same day, he released The Wicked Symphony, and I believe this one is called Angels of Babylon, or Angel of Babylon. And this is part 2 and 3 of the story of the Wicked Trilogy. So the first one came out in 08, but in 10, on the same day, they released both of these, which is the continuation of the whole story. And you know me, I love the concept albums. I absolutely love them. I think they're great. And when you're able to do 3 in a row and 2 on the same day in the same year of the story, I think it's phenomenal. So for me, it was worth pointing out. He does a lot of different stuff with his music. Yes, it is hard rock, heavy metal, but there's orchestras to it, and there's an operatic feeling, and he uses all these different singers to play all the different parts. And once again, it's almost like you're watching a play or listening to a play in music. And he's very talented, and it was definitely worth pointing out to you guys. Another one I wanted to point out, a band we've talked about before, is Camelot, Poetry of the Poisoned. This is the last album with Roy Khan, and it's great. And I'm really bummed because I had tickets to see them on this tour before Roy, had some, medical issues and such, and that eventually caused him to, shut down the tour and leave the band, etc., which totally bummed me out. But Hunter Season is just a great song, one of my favorite Camelot songs. They also have a song called The Zodiac, which is sang by John Oliva, who we've talked about with Sabotage, Trans-Siberian, etc., who is singing, I think, as the Zodiac Killer. That's the way I hear it. And then you have the four parts of Poetry of the Poison throughout, as they have 4-part song about poetry and the poison in this and stuff like that, and it just makes for, once again, a nice listen all the way through. My runner-up in 2010, Iron Maiden's The Final Frontier. And it's funny, when it came out with the name of the album, The Final Frontier, it made fans kind of wonder, is this it? Is this the last hurrah? Are we done? But it wasn't. They put out an album later on, and rumor has it, an album on the way, which would be kind of cool. But some good tunes on here. El Dorado's great. Starblind's great. Coming Home is great. The opening track, The Final Frontier is great. There's just a lot. I mean, you know me. I'm a huge Rush fan. I'm a huge Maiden fan. It's very rare for me to find things that I don't like in them. Not everything, but 99.999%. I just love their works. This is just another one up that alley that is really good. I also saw them on this tour. Phenomenal. If you ever get a chance, you got to try it. All right. My number one is Ghost, and the title of their debut album is Opus Eponymous, which means in Latin the self-titled work, which is genius, right? This is their self-titled album, Ghost, which a lot of bands do, but instead of just calling it Ghost, they call it Opus Eponymous, the self-entitled work, in a sense, right? It's genius. I absolutely love it. And here's another thing cool about Tobias Forge, who is the brain behind Ghost. He loves movies. And if you look at a lot of the artwork of their albums and their singles, they're always using ideas from movie posters or, anything. So for this one, and I actually broke out the Blu-ray to show you guys, it's from Salem's Lot. I don't know if you can see here. I'll switch because you get better lighting here. But you can see how the ghost over the house, over the church there, matches, the look. And so, to me, that is super cool. When you have a musician who loves movies, or you have, filmmakers who love music, and you get that because it's really cool. I mean, one of their singles is they use the Silence of the Lambs with the bug there, that we've seen in the famous poster, or their follow-up to this, you see, they used the cover of Amadeus, and there's a lot of this kind of stuff, and I love it. It's original. The album's great. A lot of people have a hard time with it because their lyrics are dark. The big hit off of here is The Ritual, or Ritual, not The Ritual. And then they have Elizabeth, which is about Elizabeth Bathory, read about her. And then they have stuff like Conclavi Condio, right, which is Latin, which is a staple live. It's really good. And then you have Prime Mover, it's just Death Knell. It's just a really good rock and roll album. They're not really heavy metal. It's kind of, what it is? It's kind of a Blue Oyster Cult sound, modern, maybe a little bit harder Blue Oyster Cult, you know what I mean? Don't Fear the Reaper, for those who are wondering who Blue Oyster Cult is. But they just really have a unique sound. A lot of people think they're gimmicky. I don't. I think that they're really good, and I really enjoy them. I've seen them twice live, and I think they're phenomenal. So this is the introduction to Ghost. It will not be the last time you hear of them. But they are my number one for 2010. And then, like I said, on the Blu-ray side, or movie side, that is The Conspirator. So Anyways, I loved all the comments yesterday, all the banter. I like now when my friends are commenting on my students and my students are commenting on my friends. I love it. When the two worlds collide, it's great. Keep them coming. We will see you tomorrow.